I'm ready to get the most.
So, I mean, we're live right now, and it's not like we just wasted, 15 minutes.
We just
learning how
experiences,
computers
growth.
work. Computers are hard, guys.
Yeah. So there's nothing I need to do in settings. We're good.
No. We're in a beautiful place.
Amen.
I'm really excited. So yeah, beautiful day, man. Like I said, I know. You're ending up getting the Empower place? You think you're gonna get that today, or you think you're gonna be playing out in the snow?
So since there's ice, I'm not playing in the snow.
That's fair.
So we're definitely either playing inside or we're not. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Like we were talking about a little bit before, all of the computer technicalities came in. Like I said, one of these things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is just like there is an infinite amount of information. There's an infinite amount of knowledge. So like any excuse I make for myself of why I can't do it, that is anything other than my own discipline, is a lie.
Amen.
Because like I said, if it was about information, then there would be no problems. Because if you're obese and you want to get thin, there is infinite information and infinite help sources. You know what I mean? If you want to get more money or get out of debt, there are infinite resources and infinite help sources. So it's like the more I look in my own life and my problems in my life, I go, I'm just not doing what I know I need to do.
Right. Yeah.
I think people are really bad at looking at where they're lacking discipline.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing too, to look at with like the standards talk too. Cause like people don't know what they need to do because they don't have any standards that they have identified for themselves. They have standards.
Yeah.
They just don't know what they are. So it's really valuable for like you, Derrek. I mean, one of your standards seems to be excellence, right? And pure growth all the time. So when you're not doing that because of that standard, now it's like, if I'm not pursuing that, I'm being lazy.
Yes.
I'm ripping God off here. So,
and obviously, I'm 100% okay with anybody who doesn't have those same standards.
Sure.
But for me, like I said, it's all or nothing.
Yeah. And and even for the people that don't have the 100% or excellence, like if you have standards of still doing your best, what does that look like? Let's get more specific about it.
Yes.
Oh, is it where you do 70%? Like,
yeah, it was like Dakota said on the first podcast earlier, like where it's like you really can't compare how you feel, like your level of discipline, your level of problems, your level of anything to anybody else, because you have no like idea of their perception of their problems, their perception of their goals, their perception. So for them, 50 grand a year could be like infinite money. Right. And, to them, like a very small problem, like in their oil leaking, could be like the worst thing in the world comparatively to things that have happened in their life. So just having the perspective to understand things like that.
Gosh, that is amazing.
Gosh, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this podcast basically since we started the podcast. I'm really excited to have Todd on and Seth on. I really want to get into the health side of things.
Yeah.
And right on the money. These guys
together
pop up.
On time. Synchronization.
I love it.
Oh.
So let me introduce my good friend, Todd Cool. Todd is a certified primal health coach. He is the lead coaching manager for Dr. Pompa, who is an absolute animal. Todd specializes in cellular detox. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. It's very cool. And Todd is also an absolute badass at real estate investing. So I want to pick his brain on that as well. So thank you for coming on, Todd.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'll give a little introduction to Seth Dawson. So this man right here is amazing. He's the owner of Middle America Homes. He was once a realtor with American Dream Team and Century 21. And this dude was selling over 50 homes a year. And through that, he had results, maybe not purpose. He got a little bit of burnout. And through burnout led to the creation, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, of Middle America Homes. So I just love that Seth, you're so powerful, man. And we're really excited to have you on here. We know you have a vast knowledge of health and experiences of biohacking and everything else too. So we're excited to dive into that with you guys.
Gosh, everybody having a good morning?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful morning.
Ready to roll.
I love it. I love it. It could be nicer outside, but luckily we're all inside. So
Amen.
yeah. So Todd, right away, just because I know it's what everyone heard me say, can you give me a quick definition, to not be quick, of cellular detox? It's something that you specialize in. I know quite a bit about it myself, but just for the people listening.
Yeah, sure. So, everybody knows the term detox, but what most people do is downstream. They're doing colon cleanses, they're doing liver detoxes, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. There's no problem with that. However, it doesn't get to the root of the problem. The problem is upstream somewhere. The problem is at the cellular level. So if we don't know how to detox the cell, we'll never get well, is actually our phrase in a way. But that's what we do. We actually get into the cell. We actually get into the brain even and pull out heavy metals and toxins and stuff that are causing problems on the pituitary gland, signaling issues. Everybody thinks that if they have a condition of some sort, let's say a thyroid condition, it's their thyroid, right? Well, not necessarily. It could be thyroid hormone can't get into the cell. It could be mercury on the pituitary gland, not creating the TSH to get to the thyroid. So there's some misconception on or misperceptions on that. So that's my long way of saying, but in essence, we just need to make sure that we're detoxing the cell because of the cell membrane is made of a bilipid layer of fat and toxins, bad oils, sugars, mold, all that can inflame those cells, and the good stuff can't get in, the bad stuff can't get out, and we're in trouble. So that's what that means.
Would it be safe to say that some of the reasons that we have like these bad fat layers around our cells and things like that would be from like these refined fats that they're putting in everything nowadays, like the heavy metals that are in our water and all sorts of other toxins that we're getting in through the like daily activity?
Your body doesn't know the difference between emotional, physical, chemical, environmental stressors, and you nailed it. The polyunsaturated, the damaging vegetable oils, the linoleic acid that most Americans get in their food and in fried foods and so forth is extremely damaging to the cell. Matter of fact, it's worse than sugar. Yeah. If there's one public enemy number one to your fats, to your cell membranes, it's bad oils, it's bad fats for sure.
Yeah, people just don't understand that these things not only are they just so unstable, but they go so rancid. They go rancid so quickly. And then when you're putting a rancid oil in your body and your body's trying to use it for hormone function, your body's trying to replace all these necessary fats with it. And then we have a world where people are just absolutely blasphemizing saturated fats and some of these fats that can be so good for you. It's crazy. Jimmy, like said, is this something that you deal with a lot in your practice? Is like obviously like trying to get people to avoid like seed oils and all these crappy, canola oil. I mean, it's in everything now. I mean, like if you're not a box flipper, I tell people all the time you're screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times I try to get super general at first, like red lights, yellow lights, and green lights, right? Just to make it super basic. Because let's look at sodas and then versus some veggies. Right, just like the super simple, but then you can get into the really specifics of what type of fats and like which ones are the refined and everything else. So I've really enjoyed being able to dive into that. And I love that too. Just talking about like hypo and hyperthyroidism, like where people just, it's that. Let's look at like the whole system here. Because a lot of times when people, let's just look at a biomechanical frame of reference. If I look at your ankles and you're inverted, right? Well, let's fix your shoes, right? It's like, but actually, if I keep on going more proximal, I look at your knees and then I look at your hips and then even your spine and like how that's being affected from your ergonomics with sleep and like all this type of stuff. It's like, there's so much more to health, to physicality, like everything. And I feel like a lot of us are missing the point. So I'm really excited to dive into these topics with all of you guys, because that's going to change the game.
Yeah. One of my old mentors used to always say that like all the muscle problems, health problems, food problems, all the things with our body is like a train. So like as if one piece gets off track, people pay attention, wait on the track where the train crashed. But really the only way to fix it is to go back down the track and find where you're missing the boards.
Right.
So it's exciting. So obviously when you're dealing with this, Todd, are we in a situation where, I mean, I've heard you talk about this before, where it's like, it's not always this extreme. Like, so obviously there might be someone who has the extremes with like thyroid problems and things like that. But some people nowadays, I think we'd probably say 50% of the population is probably having like an absolute like lack of energy, is overly exhausted, doesn't have proper energy levels. And a lot of this is still stemming from that same issue with like these crappy fats going to their cell membrane. And they're also probably having heavy metals in their brain. They're having all sorts of issues like that. Do you agree?
I agree. It's a multifaceted issue. You can't just nail it to one specific issue. I would say, leaky gut is probably one of the main culprits of all of this. With the glyphosate exposure and the things that are absolutely destroying our gut lining, and the things that are getting through that shouldn't be, and our mast cells we have the mast cell activation syndrome, we have hyperimmunity, so our immune system is doing what it's supposed to do. It's seeing things that shouldn't be there, and it's reacting. And so people get food sensitivities, and even like through molecular mimicry, glyphosate is absolutely insidious, in my opinion. It not only looks like the thyroid structurally, the body thinks it can be the thyroid, so that's why we have some issues with celiac and thyroid issues at the same time. But it also can replace, at least from my perspective, from the studies that I've looked at from Dr. Stephanie Seneff and others, that it can also replace glycine in protein folding. And that is a major problem. If we have one broken amino acid in a structure that is creating, it's done. It's damaged. It's gone. It doesn't do what it's supposed to. So that's the kind of the long answer to that. But it's just so many different things to look at. You just can't look at through a tunnel lens.
It is absolutely crazy to me. I've put a lot of videos out on this topic that, like, with, like, for example, glyphosate, is that like this is in like 60% of foods. Like if you want to, there's like an old misnomer. If you want to avoid glyphosate, then you should stick to the edges of the store, because if it's in the middle of the store, if it's in a box, if it's something that's stored on a shelf, it's probably got glyphosate in it. Obviously, my recommendations are always to buy organic. I like my clients to buy organic. I like them to try to avoid glyphosate as much as they can. Obviously, and the best thing, in my opinion, is just to find the brands that you enjoy the most. But and obviously, when you find a good brand that's really good at avoiding these things, you do better. Nowadays, they're starting to put glyphosate free on the labels, which I think is really exciting. But like, it's just crazy to me. We talk about this all the time. We can deep dive into it, but I read the stat the other day, it was like 42%. It could be even higher, but I think it was 42% of foods in America are banned in 80% of other countries.
Wow.
So like literally banned, and they'll feed it to us because they're like proven carcinogens, proven toxins, full of everything that you want to avoid. You can flip a box of cereal over sometimes and see more toxins than if you like drank something that you were going to spray on your yard. It really is crazy. Like I know,
Derrek, that's why some people can go over to Europe and eat pasta or eat breads, baguettes and stuff, and that with no issues. But over here, it just tears them up. So what's the culprit there?
Seth, in your house, I know obviously you guys are
the wheat. The wheat is the problem too. The dwarf wheat.
That's so funny. I don't know if you agree with this, Todd. Before we hop on something else, I tell clients all the time, I go, if you're buying non-organic, buy white. And I'm not a fan of white bread. It's not that I love it. It's that I've read some research where the wheat and the whole grain bread will actually hold the glyphosate within it even like better than the bleached white bread, because at least the bleached white bread is broken down, so you get some of it out in the process. But when you have whole grain, like, so if you're buying whole grain bread and it's not organic bread, like Dave Killer's bread, something that's organic, if you're not buying that, then you're actually getting more glyphosate. You're getting more problems. And this is something that we deal with, like oatmeal, something we deal with whole grain bread. We deal with things like this.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that with the wheat, like even the switch from wheat to whole wheat, right? That's still not organic. And then you're looking at the glyphosate. But then it's like, well, what about bleach? with the microvilli in your intestines and such. With the white bread, it's like, that's freaking trash. It's like, ugh, what do we do?
Just buy organic.
Yeah, just buy organic. Done. Stay on the outside of the store. I love that, by the way, Derrek. That is so beautiful. Stay on the outside of the store. Like, if it's in the middle, there's a lot of preservatives and usually not the best recipe for abundance.
The only answer we have is organic, honestly, but even organic is so insidious that it gets in our water systems, gets in the air, gets in the rain. So even organic is going to have some trace amounts. You just have to be careful. And there's things like, I'm going to say, like, if you're taking any apple cider vinegar, it has acetic acid in there. It can actually attack glyphosate and take care of it. So there's things that we can do naturally to kind of protect ourselves. It's interesting because we live in a modern day society that we have we live like kings and queens of the past did, honestly, but it's coming at a cost. It's coming at a huge cost to us with this convenience factor, and it's destroying our health.
Yeah. What'd you say, Todd, about apple cider vinegar?
It's got acetic acid in it, and that's known to be able to combat glyphosate. One of the very few things that can. So there's a simple, very cost-effective, natural thing that can be beneficial.
To be helpful, yeah. It's funny, like when you hear acidic, people that don't like for sure know what we're talking about, like, wait, acidic, like that's gonna hurt me.
Yeah, well, it's
like,
not
no,
acidic,
it's
the
helping.
word acidic is acetic acid. It's a different spelling, but
yes.
But it is
good distinction.
But even there, obviously, it's with apple cider vinegar, like the acetic acid. I mean, if you have gout, I'm kind of asking here. I know these subjects be true. I don't know if they come from the same thing, but acetic acid, like if someone has gout, can have a really good effect on it. Kidney stones, apple cider vinegar is really good at breaking down because of the acetic acid. Anybody I've ever worked with who had acid reflux, even severe IBS, you give them apple cider vinegar, it'll calm the acid reflux, calm their stomach down, specifically through the acetic acid. So do you think that relates at all to the glyphosate reaction? Or do you think that those are just other mechanisms the acetic acid is hitting?
I actually don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the stomach acid of most Americans is at the wrong pH. We've been taking antacids and proton pump inhibitors and things to reduce the acidic or the environment, and the pH is too high. It's not acidic enough, and so we can't break down foods. So they're actually doing the opposite of what they should. It's counter I guess intuitive to think that you actually need to lower the pH or raise the acidity of your stomach to take care of that. And a lot of times it's also it's a liver gallbladder backup. It's a toxic bile situation that causes that acid reflux as well. So there's another situation to where you're looking at other things that could be causing that issue.
Yeah. Seth, I know you love your biohacking, you love doing all this stuff, and I know you like to buy quality stuff. Like when you and Sarah are going to the store, is there any stuff that you're like obviously paying attention to avoiding? Is there any stuff that you guys are like really leaning into as you go shopping, like farm fresh, going to like out and like I'm trying to say like local markets, things like that?
I mean, I think it's just the obvious stuff. Like it's something that the emotion that I feel when I hear all this is just like, holy crap, like just have to go live in a cabin in the woods and have organic soil and like farm your own food because there's just poison in every which way that you look. One of the questions I had for Todd though, the glyphosate, is it just while it's in your system, you're experiencing negative consequences, or are there like actual like structural changes or like changes in your like genetic expression, changes that are longer than just if like, let's say today someone switches to eating organic foods and avoids glyphosate and they're doing all that?
Yeah, well, so my understanding, glyphosate is not something that's just acute. It's going to be a chronic issue because that's one of the culprits of leaky gut. It actually destroys it actually inflames those tight junctions that between the cells. Your gut wall is only one cell thick, which is like less than a human hair thickness. It's just fascinating how that can be the protection from what we're eating to our immune system that thin. So anything that destroys that affects it, and glyphosate is known to destroy that. Now, not only does it destroy the gut lining, but it's known to also affect the blood-brain barrier. It actually creates an issue with the tight junctions there, and that can create a huge problem. So glyphosate is one of the most insidious things, in my opinion, that's ever been created. It actually was a pipe cleaner and antibiotic. It destroys the soil through the shikimate pathway. The bacteria are destroyed. It's just, in my opinion, it's one of the worst things ever created.
Wow.
It really is crazy, some of these things that get into the hands of the consumer. And obviously, I mean, like, I have an extreme example, but it was used for like fat loss purposes for a while. But like DMP, I know you've probably heard this before, Todd. But DMP is a substance that like we used to use in Vietnam as to kill the trees. And then they found out back then that you could spray it on people and they would overheat to death. So it was used as a weapon, a bioweapon. And then back in the States, people started taking it as a fat burner because exactly that, it would heat you up and you would burn fat. But it's just like, I wonder there, my question is are people truly ignorant to the idea that these things are here, or are people truly ignorant to the fact that, you know, common like courtesy of not having to deal with like paying attention to these things is better than the disease itself? Like would people rather live in a world where they don't have to pay attention to the stuff on the box and they get to eat Twinkies, or they get to take the pill that makes, you know, this part of their life easier, than they would feel healthy?
Yeah.
Or be healthy? And I think a lot of the problem there is, do most people even know what feeling healthy is? Because like sometimes when I work with a patient, I'm sure you deal with, Todd, all of us have seen it in our own lives and people around us, is you can take someone from unhealthy to healthy, and it's not like they're just like, that's cool. It's everything, the way their brain feels, the way they sleep, the way they function, their happiness, their dopamine, their serotonin, like everything ramps up so much. So I wonder if like there's just an ignorance there. Is there like, and I don't have the answer to that, but is there just an ignorance to the subject, or is there just like a fake ignorance? Like people are pretending not to know, so they don't have to deal with it. One thing I said to Jimmy before you guys got on is one of the things I really like is this quote that says, if it was about information, there wouldn't be obesity. If it was about information, there wouldn't be poor, because at this point, there is no lack of information. Like you can get it in 2 seconds anywhere. So there's simply a lack of discipline and a lack of initiative. And when you see those nowadays, I mean, these things are going to lead to serious disease.
You know, one thing I'd say
changing
on top of that too, though, is like not just the information, it's also awareness that you still have to grow. Yeah. Right. And like, so I look at my grandpa who passed away like 4 years ago now and was one of my heroes. But like that man, like worked his freaking butt off. He was a farmer, 500 acres of land, like just a beast. And he had like average health and really poor. If I was to ask like us, like, no, dude, you're so off, because he was doing all the easier things. Because when you work your butt off, I want some Spam. I just want some Spam in a can, man. And like just all the easy stuff. So like for him, he had the information available, but he didn't have the awareness. And that's where I think it's like I can have grace and mercy for people like you freaking idiot to meet them where they're at and help pull them where they need to be. So, yeah.
I think it is information. I would argue that it still is. Like if you look 100 years ago, like starvation was a problem. Mm-hmm. So all these negative chemicals that have damaged everybody, they have a good side to them too. Like nobody's starving anymore. There's not a food problem anymore. Like there's so much food, and this time window that we're looking at is so small in compared to human history, or like it's happened over a short period of time. And the fact that we're having this conversation right now, and that this is a trending topic, and that there's like large organic sections at the grocery store, I would imagine if you looked at it from a larger period of time, you'd be like, oh yeah, we were trying to solve that food problem and we accidentally poisoned our entire country, and like, but they died at 60 instead of like 20 from starvation. So
pretty soon we'll get it figured out so they don't die until they're older, because we'll get rid of this stuff and we'll have the same solutions just with better solutions.
Yeah, I don't know that the pervasiveness of information, like yes, it's there, but people don't know to look for it. Like it's like, just like I could go online and learn how to I don't know, let's say, enrich uranium, or I could learn how to do crazy chemistry. I could learn all sorts of stuff, but like I haven't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And most people just watch like CNN and they're just being fed what is important to them. So that I think that there's still an opportunity.
Absolutely. When I say
Yeah, I
awareness
agree.
too, that is the opportunity, because awareness can be grown upon, right?
Yeah.
Todd, I saw your reactions too about like how like the food and all that kind of stuff. I'm excited to hear what you have to say to that.
No, I agree, because I think it
Yeah.
all started out with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
But what happened was not good as far as the health that we've encountered because of it. So I don't think it was insidious to start. It wasn't intentional. It was actually for, it was for a good reason. They wanted to feed the world, and it just kind of ended up badly for us. The rest of the world is not eating the same stuff we are. But I was just going to say, make one point, that some of the issues that we come across, and I think this is just an American problem, that they want everything now. They want to lose weight to get well, and that's not the answer. They need to get healthy to lose weight. So many of our clients, if you're full of heavy metals, if you have amalgam fillings in your teeth, if you inherited lead and mercury from your mom, these types of things, because lead gets buried in the bones. I was born in the 70s or 1970. We had a ton of lead in the paint and the gas, and in all sorts of places. So that gets stored, and it expresses itself when mom goes through childbearing and stuff, and you can inherit that. So that creates all kinds of issues. But guess where the body stores a lot of this stuff? In the fat cells, because that's where it quarantines. You can't keep it in the blood, you'll die. So it's a nice quarantine system, a life-saving mechanism. But at the same time, you won't be able to burn fat if it's toxic. So your body's, so that's why you have this weight loss resistance, right? Your body's trying to say, look, I can't do keto. I can't burn this fat that you have stored because it's toxic. So we have to get that out first, make that a clean source of energy, and then we can have that metabolic flexibility that we need. So
Beautiful. I never
that makes
even
sense.
thought of it that way. That's crazy to think about.
That's
that.
very well said.
Like, I mean, I
I had a
love
question.
Go ahead, Seth.
You want to finish, or like?
No, I was just saying, I love what you said. I love what you said about focus on being healthy, not on being thin. Because it's like constantly I see that in people where, like, I work with a client and, I put such emphasis on, trying to get them healthier, fix blood markers, fix these things. And then all of a sudden they'll be eating like not similar foods, but similar portions, similar calories, similar macros to everything they were doing before, and just dropping weight. So, because the truth was, food was the problem. Don't get me wrong. It's what caused the problems in the first place, but it wasn't the calories. It wasn't all the carbs, like everyone blasphemizes and like tries to hate on. It wasn't all these things, or the fats. It was just that they were unhealthy. Their body like couldn't process or function properly at all.
Mm-hmm.
My question was about different detox methods. And I was introduced to something that I heard about yesterday that was crazy. And it's called combo therapy. And how perfect is it that I get an opportunity to be able to ask you today? Have you ever heard of that? And are things like this just complete nonsense?
Who are you talking to?
Utah.
Talking to you, Todd. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So combo is like poison from a frog.
Yeah.
It's intense. And it actually can work, to be honest. It's not a detox per se, but it's a very therapeutic. I would be very careful with it. You can get very sick from it, but it is a thing, and it's got its place for sure.
Have you experienced
I don't know that. No, I haven't myself.
Yeah, I just heard about it yesterday, and I was like reading on the Wikipedia page about the molecular structures, and apparently it is an opioid agonist. So I'm like, just imagining these like frogs going around shooting fentanyl at people. Like it's crazy though. And then they burn themselves and then they put this thing in there. I was like, it sounds like a little bit crazy.
Is this the hallucinogen?
It sounds crazy, but I've never done it myself, but I have heard people who have done it that have some positive. I've actually heard negatives and positives from it. So do your research, of course, like anything else, but
the claim though is that it's like taking your adrenals and these parts of your body, the claim that I read, and it's essentially just forcing a purge. And do you think that there's any legitimacy to like the body being able to force a purge, or are you just like coughing up mucus. Is there actually toxins in the mucus you're coughing up, or is it just you're throwing up?
Oh, no. So what I do know, I'm not speaking to combo specifically, but we do have a lot of toxic bile. And bile, when it gets released from the gallbladder and the liver, with toxins, it actually recirculates because it's very hard for the body to make. So it just kind of recirculates and recirculates. We've got to pull those toxins out of the bile complex in order to get that clean bile to go back up. So we have to have binders, chelators to do that. But yeah, so that's a situation a little bit different, but we can purge things. I'm not sure how the combo actually works, but it is a poison.
So the idea of what we just talked about is like putting good gas in your car, not salt. And then the next thing would be like, that's it. From my experience, like changing my diet, it's been rough at times. There's like a window that you pass, or that I've passed. It sounds like from what you're saying, that could have to do with all of the stuff that the body has just accumulated. Are there methods that you use to speed up that process to where assist the body in actually removing these toxins, so that as you're putting the good stuff in, you can get rid of the bad stuff faster?
Oh yeah. So that's our whole program. When somebody comes to the program that I work for, it's a 5-month program. We actually have a full month of prep phase where we're supporting the liver, the kidneys, the lymphatic system, the gut. We want to prepare the body for detox. And then we get into 3 months of what we call the body phase, to where we're supporting the glutathione production inside the cell, intracellular glutathione, so we can push that stuff out. And then we use the proper chelators that grab those toxins once they're pulled from the cell, and they come down to the bile complex, to where then we have binders that stay in the gut to grab the toxins out of the bile and into the toilet. So, and then the last month we get into the brain phase that we do. So it's actually deep tissue is what it is. We cross the blood-brain barrier, we grab metals from there. And because of the 3 months that we had in the body phase, we're actually establishing what you can call a concentration gradient difference. We're kind of putting a void of toxins in the body so we can actually pull stuff out. If our body was still full of toxins and we tried to pull out stuff from the brain, there's really no place for it to go because of the concentrate. Like water likes to run downhill. Anything in nature wants the path of least resistance. So we're creating that natural path of least resistance. So it's a process, and we if you ever heard of doing IV chelation, one of the biggest problems with that is that you go do it and then you go home. The problem is there's a half-life to consider. And once that chelator goes away, you're going to feel like garbage, because now you're recirculating all those toxins that you pulled. So you got to do this stuff over the course of time. Let's say you're using DMPS or DMSA, something like that. You got to take it like every 4 to 6 hours to prevent that redistribution. Otherwise, you're going to feel like garbage. I can guarantee it. So,
because you're basically freeing it up, then like you're taking it from the cell, freeing it up. Then after it gets out of your system, your body's just re-uptaking it.
Exactly.
Wow.
It just goes somewhere else, like a street sweeper going down the road. It just puts it somewhere else.
I have a double question here. First one is, would these be related to, like we see so much of it now in some of the women I work with, infertility? Do you think that this same thing, like bad cell membranes, these toxins in the body, do you think these are also going to be related to things like infertility, these like constant cases of PCOS we see, these constant cases we see of endometriosis? It's everywhere right now. Seems like every single woman seems to have PCOS or endometriosis. You think that these kind of correlate in the same thing? I think that obviously we could go back to toxic foods, we could go back to these bad fats, and we could go back to all of these sort of things. Do you think that someone who maybe is spending all this money on IVF, some of these people that are going through all these things to get pregnant, could like really enjoy the benefits of just detoxing the heck out of their body? Like, have you seen any experience of something like this? And then obviously their body is more readily available to take on.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, absolutely, Todd. You're the expert today.
You're the man, Todd.
Well, sorry, I wasn't
You're
sure.
the man, bro.
I wouldn't say I'm the expert, but so that's an interesting question. You mentioned fatigue at the very onset of this podcast. Yeah. We see so much of that because people are constantly in the sympathetic nervous system state. they're constantly in that fight or flight mode. You know, they're constantly running. They don't get into that rest and digest, the parasympathetic state enough. So what happens? Eventually the adrenals get fatigued, if you will. And guess what? DHEA is made from there. There's things that are made in the adrenal glands that are down, like estrogen and testosterone are downstream from that. So adrenal fatigue or just burnout adrenals, if you can support that, if you can change your lifestyle, if you can try to get into that parasympathetic state more, then you're going to be in a better place. So honestly, the PCOS and things like that, you know what the best thing you can do is fast.
I love that.
You can fast.
People
Absolutely.
you could fix so much with fasting. I know when me and Seth were working together, I got him into fasting. He's a big fan of it now. Do you agree, Seth, when you fast, you find that you're just like seeing benefits everywhere?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's when I've felt the best in my life is like day 2, 3 of a fast.
Yeah, your
It's
brain's
incredible.
just like on fire. You got a million.
That's interesting.
I actually had a question for you, Todd. Have you seen Gary Brecka, who's been like kind of getting popular?
I know the name, but I'm not sure if I know who that is.
So he's got a clip where he's talking about things. He talks about these. What would you call
There's
it?
gene mutations.
Yeah, the gene mutations. And so he had a video in particular where he's talking about like folic acid, and he has another video where he's talking about vitamin B12 and cyanocobalamin, and how it's made. Its root is cyanide, and he claims that it's being broken down in the body as cyanide. Do you know anything about this? And is there any credibility to these different forms of vitamin actually being broken down into like toxic chemicals inside the body?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that there are a lot of people with that MTHFR genetic mutation, if you will. They feel like they can't detox properly, but I can tell you half the country has that genetic mutation. Your body finds ways around that. And I don't know much about cyanocobalamin, but methylcobalamin is the methylated form of that. I feel like that's probably methyl tetrahydrofolate is probably the best form. I know cyanocobalamin is used in a lot, and also methylfolate as well. So I guess I don't know the answer to that, other than if you're talking about genetic mutations, it's probably the MTHFR.
I think
mutation.
my big thing that I'm trying to ask here is there's so much information online, and everything that has been discussed so far it's so simple. And I think it really is simple. It's just like, look at what you're putting in your body, take into consideration glyphosate a poison that has other applications where it's literally used as a poison. And then there's all these people online who are trying to sell this thing and make it seem so complex. Like you just said, half of the country has a genetic mutation. Seems like maybe it's supposed to be that way, and it's not that deep. And maybe you're looking at you're not fixing the beginning of the train, like Derrek was talking about, and they're just selling this false bill of goods. When I see a video of Gary Brecka, and he's talking about, and smart guy. So if I ever talk to Gary Brecka, I don't mean to like insult you. But it sounds to me like it's still focusing on the wrong train card, and like you could just fix it. And maybe what he's saying is just not eat those things. And maybe that's some logistics.
I'll hype in on that. So this is with 10X Growth Con, and Gary Brecka like is the health guy. Like he does a lot of breath work with everybody that comes. He really finds that he feels that all disease is because of the lack of oxygen. Like things are not oxygenated to a certain extent to where that's why we're decomposing in a way. And so when they do the tests, it's like $600 something test. You do the swab, and through that swab, they're able to find all the gene mutations. And like you'll have like a red, yellow, or green light on like what that gene mutation is and if it's going to serve you or suck. And then based off of that, you can also find what are the things that you need more of to kind of combat that. So that's kind of their system and the way that they've been doing it. I think it's pretty solid. I haven't done a lot of research on gene mutations and like
you got it done, right?
But I did not. No. So pretty much all of our friends have, but
yeah, I got it done, and I ordered the vitamins and supplements that it suggested, and I don't know. It seems like a magic bullet. And here is a redirection to our supplement webpage, and where you can find perfectly the vitamin B12 formation right for you. It's just twice the cost of what you buy on Amazon.
All right.
Yeah, we see it a lot, obviously, even over at like Health Kick, where like we're selling supplements all the time. Is like trends are constant. Like, you know, like at all times there's a TikTok trend, there's a health trend, and obviously when you all of us own businesses and run businesses, like you're always trying to find more areas for profitability. So like it's awesome to not only like offer a solution, but sell the solution. It's a really good metric if you can have both ends of the spectrum, the service and the solution itself. But one thing you did ask about was the cyanocobalamin, the methylcobalamin. I just think, like, just to harp on that for a second, anybody who's going to go buy a multivitamin, anyone who's going to do anything, I always tell people this. I think it's worth noting that, like, that is like one of the true keys of telling if you're getting from a good company. So cyanocobalamin is much cheaper, methylcobalamin is more expensive. So if they're taking the time to put methylcobalamin in their supplement, there's a good chance they're not cheaping on everything else, because that's one of the more expensive ingredients you can put in. And then cyanocobalamin, what they'll say in studies is like, oh, it's only like 1/100th the fatal dose. I'm not sure. It's like, it's less than that, but it's like, it's when it does break down to cyanide in your body, but it's like, they're like, well, it's only, you know, 1/500th of what your body can handle. But like, what I always tell people is like, if I took cyanide out of a container and I put like a little pile on the table, you wouldn't like wipe it up with your finger and lick it. Like, you would still be like,
speak for yourself.
Yeah, one thing while we're on the subject, God, I love this conversation so much right now.
I would like to add a trend. You're talking about trends.
Yes.
So how about this trend? How about getting back to our ancestors, what they did? How about we eat seasonally? How about we have intermittent fasting? How about we go through feast famine cycles like they did? They were hunting and they had food. They were, when it was winter, they didn't have food for 5 days. Let's get back to that. How about that trend?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. People forget that we were a hominid species. Like, I love, even with the fruits and vegetables, like I like fruits and vegetables. I don't think they're bad for you. I'm not here to say that. But even if you look at our ancestors, like, we were never in one place long enough to grow fruits and vegetables. Like, agriculture didn't come along for a very long time. We were following the animals. So I absolutely, if we didn't get animals and we could find things that we could eat, we would. But I think, like, going back to like really having a protein heavy diet, people just don't understand the importance of the high saturated fat, the high protein diet. And I think one thing that a quote that I really like is that we are not an overly obese society, we are an under muscled society. So that's one thing that I'd say a lot. And that's because, like, you find, and obviously everyone here's lifted quite a bit of weights and done some stuff like that. The processes for your body dealing with glucose, the processes for your body dealing with a lot of like cellular function happens in the muscle. So if you don't have enough muscle, where you have this sedentary, under muscled society, and also like even just calories, like if we're talking about putting on adipose tissue like fat, like if I have a lot of muscle, like when I was really, really big, I could eat like 5,000 calories a day and not gain weight because I had so much muscle. But then you have clients, you see people all the time, they lose weight. Let's just say someone loses 200 pounds, but they do it all sorts of fad diet ways. They don't gain any muscle. They can never go back to eating normal at all because they didn't gain anything to upregulate their natural calorie burn. Their calorie burn actually went down because they're lighter and they have probably less muscle because you burn muscle in the process. So like, the one thing that I try to do with my clients is we try to add as much muscle as possible to them. And like anybody should be doing this, is add as much muscle to your frame as possible. Because not only because you eat more and get away with it, but it'll make you so much healthier. It is something that's like so lost on people, is just like being active and moving, like, and then like making sure that you have enough muscle that your body can actually process things properly.
100%.
Yeah, I like, but my one question I was going to ask, and this is a hot take on this, Todd. Everybody, I hear it all the time now, and maybe it's because we're in Indiana, but a lot of people are worried about these shots this last like 2-3 years and trying to get them out of their system. Do you think doing any of these processes of cellular detox could have any effect on just getting any of these sort of toxins out of your system, or do you think that's beyond?
Nope.
Yep.
I don't.
Okay. But
It's different. If it
You need
was
to
a
stand
normal,
next to a nuclear reactor.
yeah,
With those gamma rays
There
just
you
blast away your DNA.
Done.
here's my hot take. You said this is a hot take.
I love it.
If it was a normal type of vaccine where they had an adjuvant in there to have the immune system respond to it, with, thimerosal or something like that, yes, absolutely, a cellular detox could help. This is an RNA. This is a totally different type of an mRNA, I should say.
Yeah.
And that's actually changing. It's actually telling your cells to produce that, right? So you're actually creating senescent cells, because that's not what they're intended to do. So I'm going to come back to fasting. Autophagy. Fasting equals autophagy, which equals recycling of those senescent cells. Easiest, quickest answer, I think, is that's probably the best thing you can do.
I love that.
So Todd,
do you
real
think
quick
about-
on your fasting, what type of fasting do you like to do? Do you like where it's 1, 2, 3 days intermittent, or is any type the best?
Well, here's what I would say. This is the problem that people get into when they get into fasting. They do it all the time. We love the feast famine cycles. If you're going to fast, you better feast, right? So let's take a typical week. You might do 5 days of intermittent fasting. You might have 1 20 or 4-hour fast possibly, and 1 feast day, something like that. When I say feast, maybe you're eating breakfast, you're not eating garbage. I don't say not a cheat day. Some people say cheat. No. Feast, good quality food, just eat more. And I think that's an amazing cycle. It doesn't have to be 5-1-1. It could be 5-2 or 4-2-1, whatever. But I think you got to have all of that to be effective.
Yeah. That's so well said. I love
Would you
that.
use that in children, Todd? I mean, like, I know you obviously have your kids. I don't know if you had all this knowledge back when they were young, but like,
My kids do it naturally because no, I didn't. I'm kind of new to this the past few years. Learned a lot. When I was younger, I was like into bodybuilding, being big. Now I'm doing longevity. So I'm trying to keep my muscle mass, but I'm looking more for longevity. And this is what I found to be most effective. So I don't know, kids are different, I think there's nothing wrong with intermittent fasting. I wouldn't do probably extended fasts with them necessarily, but we do need to be metabolically flexible. So you can tell if you can't get through a 24-hour fast without just getting hangry and upset and brain fog and all that stuff, then you aren't metabolically flexible. Your body's not ready to burn fat yet. So you kind of have to prepare for that, just like anything else. You're preparing for a marathon, you've got to kind of work your way up to it.
And one thing Jimmy asked was like, what type of fast you like? I've always used water fasts with my clients. I like to put them into ketosis before we start. It makes it a little bit easier for them to actually get into the fast, enjoy the fast. It makes it a lot easier. And then we'll do 2 or 3 days water fasting. So just water, maybe a little bit of sodium, a little bit of salt, just to make them feel good, things like that. I even personally avoid like multivitamins, anything like that. I really just like to let the body go. But some people nowadays do bone broth fast. Some people nowadays do, Jimmy just did a fast recently that I thought was really cool. It was like it was the cayenne pepper fast. It was interesting, but it's like, do you think that there's anything advantageous about doing that? Because like for me, obviously you're not technically fasting because there's not a lack of calories, but maybe there's another advantage to these different styles, or do you have a particular type that you enjoy?
So good question. I tend to water fast. Like once a year, I'll do a 5-day water fast. I don't do that very often, but somebody that's really sick, if you can do a 5-day water fast, a quarter or something like that, and that can be really helpful. There's a lot of studies out there that say that fasting mimicking diets can be just as effective as a water fast. I don't know that to be true, but somebody like Prolon or somebody that, does the packages that you have to have under a certain amount of calories for that to be effective. Let's say for a guy, it should be under 800 calories. For a woman, it should be under 500 calories, generally speaking, on their body type, for it to be as good as a water fast. Now, I prefer water only, and I do love electrolytes. I do love sea salt, but that's pretty much it. And I do love that you don't have any vitamins, minerals, anything like that. I mean, other than sea salt, because we don't want to push the body in any one direction. We want the body's innate intelligence to take over and do its thing. It's going to go fix things. It's going to go repair things. It's going to go eat bad cells. It's going to do what it's going to do. And we don't want to push that in any certain direction. So I like that.
Funny question. So, how do you feel about black coffee, green tea during fast? Because obviously they're calorie free, things like that. What about, I mean, some people I know, there's been studies on like, I'm not recommending diet soda, obviously, because it's not going to be good for what we're trying to do here. But like, if it helps somebody do it, because it's calorie free and it's not going to spike blood sugar, would that be something that you could use? I'm not saying should, but could would be a better answer.
You definitely could. And it also depends if you really want to know, because everybody's so different. I could drink black coffee and my insulin won't spike. Somebody else could drink black coffee and, believe it or not, their insulin could spike 10 points or more. If your insulin spikes, I would not recommend it. So it would take some testing to figure that out. But the only thing that I don't like about that, Derrek, is that it could potentially make you hungry. Right, that flavor, anything that you put in your mouth, even if it doesn't have calories, could start that digestive process, that saliva and everything, and it actually could be a detriment to your willpower would be a struggle because you're actually working against yourself that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Usually not the
Todd, I want to
about
hop
coffee.
in on that too with like the master cleanse was what you were talking about earlier, Derrek. So a lot of our clients do that, including myself. So the master cleanse we do, it's 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons of organic maple syrup, however much cayenne pepper you want. Like, don't go freaking crazy, especially me. I think it's disgusting. And then a certain amount of like medium, like level temperature spring water. And so like when we do that, you can go anywhere from like the 6 to 12 glasses, and then that can go up to 10 days for some of them. But like for me, bro, I hate the flavor. Like I just don't like it. So I end up doing the water fast anyways. But like I've noticed, like when you look at people's diet, if they have diabetes mellitus or anything like that, like that sometimes it helps with insulin levels. So I don't know. I'm kind of in both favor of like just the straight water fast, and then sometimes for this to help them with their glycogen levels and everything else. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I was just curious, like what your thoughts were on the master cleanse is what they call it.
I don't know. I mean, other than what you just told me about it, I wasn't familiar with it, but it sounds like if it works, it works. I wouldn't disparage it whatsoever. Just for me, I think it would just be harder for me just to have that flavor. Not necessarily because I've done bone broth fast and so forth. I've done all those. But if I'm going to do a water fast, I'm just going to do water. I'm kind of like you.
Yeah,
So
love that. That's awesome.
what's the point of that? Is that with the stuff in there, is it helping to clear things out? Is it what's the point of those ingredients?
Yeah. So each thing, it kind of heightens the metabolism, right? And then the cayenne pepper, like there's a thermogenic effect with that too. So like I forget which doctor it was that kind of started it, but with that blend, they found the most universal generalized, because again, we're not getting specific with everybody. So I think that's the downfall of it, is that again, we're just like, just do it. But that's where the water kind of triumphs it.
I think one thing we're seeing obviously across all these things is just calorie control. I mean, they've done so many studies on longevity, on health, and calorie control is everything. Like you can, if you go to countries like blue zones where like they have the longest living, usually they do not have the type of like eating styles we do. Like if you go to a place like Greece is one of these places. It's Mediterranean style diet, which obviously falls into all these things we're talking about, the healthier fats, mostly going to be meat and fat intake. But my buddy went there for 6 months. His family lived there. And he said, they would drink coffee during the day. They'd kind of do that, but they didn't really eat. And they basically spent their entire day like going around and building up the things they needed to have this absolute mammoth feast at the end of the day. And that's how they style their life. They literally, like, your daily goal is to like get everything. Like one guy, you're going to get meat, like you're going to go get the veggies, you're going to go get the wine, and your daily goal is to enjoy your day as much as possible. Like it's beautiful out, have a beautiful life, and just build up all the supplies you need to have this beautiful feast at the end of the night. They drink wine, they have a great time. You get together with your family, your friends every single day. Every day is the Saturday. But like these people, they live so long. They have really good, like, the grandparents, the great grandparents all live with the family. You're very close. You keep your unit close. And like, even there, like you said, like jobs aren't even as much the case. Like you take care of your land, there's not home taxes, there's not all these problems we deal with. When I think of things like that, like Seth said about buying a cabin, I hear that and I go, man, I want that. The only problem is like, I don't think I can get my whole family and everybody I love to go to Greece and start this lifestyle. If I was born there, obviously it'd be perfect. If I had people there to go be with, it'd be perfect. But if it was just me and Jenna, you know, trying to collect for our nightly feast every night and we had nobody around that we knew or could talk to, I don't think it'd be as fun.
I'll come with you, Derrek. I'm on board with that. So yeah, I think that's
same.
great, because that dinner that they have is probably lasts 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that they work up to. They're moving, like you said at the beginning, just moving and enjoying life. Guess what? They're taking their time to eat. Where are they? They're in a parasympathetic state at that point. We eat on the run. We eat in the drive-through as Americans. That's a totally different. We can't digest food properly in a sympathetic state. So that's just the way that it was intended, honestly.
Do you always try to put yourself into a parasympathetic state before you eat? Because like one thing I remember, and you could probably tell me better on this one. One thing like I used to do when I was bodybuilding, and I used to, there's some research, I forget what it was. I don't want to say anything wrong, but it's exactly that. It's like before you eat, let's say you were running a bunch of errands, let's say you went to the gym, let's say you did something that heightens your state up so much, you want to almost take the time, like 15 minutes when you get home, to sit and let your body calm down, whatever that is for you, but I get your energy level down, get yourself calmed down before you eat, because your body will not be able to like act upon the food properly, pull the nutrients properly if you're in that like stressor state.
Yeah. In a perfect world, yes, I would do exactly what you said. Do I do that? No, not all the time. I'm human. I'm part of this society. But I'm cognizant of that fact. So most people aren't aware of that. That's the point. They need to have more awareness around that.
If we all had a Tesla like Seth can just be in his parasympathetic state, just chilling, eating his food, relaxing. The car's just taking him where he needs to go. It's just, except for me, it's like me whipping.
I wish.
With the whipping turns with a burrito in my hand.
Well, can I bring up a point, Derrek, about I'm sure your Greece analogy or story is fair game here. We need microbiome diversity to be healthy, and to get that diversity, not only do we need to have these feast famine cycles, but we need to eat in a diversified way. So that could be keto, that could be carnivore, that could be AIP, that could be what we call a cellular healing diet. We want a diversity of foods. Most Americans eat the same 8 foods every day.
Right.
And that's a problem in itself. So that's a whole different subject, but it's all kind of tied together. So we just need that microbiome diversity to be healthy as well. That's a major, major part of overall health.
I'm so glad you said that, Todd, because a lot of people out that I know that are super successful, Chipotle every day, bro. Like every single day. It's pretty healthy. Let's go. And like, it's amazing that in what you compare it to, it's better than a lot of other things, I guess. But like in terms of that microbiome and that gut diversity, not cool at the pool. And I love that you said that too, to like change it up with people. And that's one of the things that I really love to promote is like, we don't want to just find 3 meals and you do that for the rest of your life, right? We need to have that diversity. And I was going to ask you too, one thing that I try to help people with sleep ergonomics and sleep hygiene is a routine and finding a way to get themselves into the parasympathetic state to where they're able to just truly rest. And so like one small example would be like you start flexing you lay down, chill the freak out. And then I've got some metacognition stuff to help you like do self-talk to get you in a state too. But then like you can also like just once you do the self-talk, if you need it, you start at your forehead, flex in the face. And then like you just keep going down like a few times. And then it's amazing like how the parasympathetic is just like super initiated at that point. But I was going to ask you if you had any techniques on getting yourself into a parasympathetic state before eating. Like, let's say that I pack a whole cooler. I do that. If I'm going to eat all day and I'm going to go see patients across freaking Indiana, then I'm going to pack a whole cooler and I'll eat throughout the day, or unless I'm doing an intermittent fast. But like, is there techniques that I could be doing or other people could be doing to where I can just like like get myself into a parasympathetic state to have that for 30 minutes?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, I don't do that. But I should, since we're having this conversation.
Fair.
There aren't many things that can get you into a parasympathetic state like that. Breathing is one of them. So Wim Hof type, just the proper type of breathing within a couple minutes can get you, if you're doing it correctly, can get you into that state.
Yeah.
Not much else that I know of, unless you're doing something with a vagus nerve or you're doing things like that to help. I would say just slowing down, closing your eyes, breathing deeply and properly, which you probably know what that looks like, in through the nose and then out through the mouth. That's one thing that I would do if I paid more attention to it. So
yeah, what an opportunity for all of us.
I've got to practice what I preach, right? So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Let's go, bro. Me too. Me too. That's helpful.
Yeah, we're all great at giving good advice. We all suck at following it sometimes. But I did want to get into one of these subjects we wanted to talk about today was a little bit of the biohacking thing. Obviously, I know Seth's pretty versed in this. I think Todd's going to have some good merit in this. But, nowadays there's all these little tricks. There's all these little tips. We see people using saunas, ice baths. We see people using red light therapy. We see people using peptides. Like one of these great research subjects I just got into the other day, Seth gave me a red light unit, awesome. Just let me have it for a long time. And I didn't take as much advantage of it as I should have, because I was reading how the reason farmers, throw back to Jimmy's farmer grandpa, can eat Spam and all these crappy things and get away with it is because they get so much red light from the sun. Red light rejuvenates cellular melatonin. Cellular melatonin is very different than the melatonin your body produces from your pineal gland. It's not going to make you sleepy. It's actually the most antioxidant substance that can go into your body is melatonin from red light, and how it's so effective that you can even eat a lot of oxidative foods. Not recommending that, but you could, and you get so much antioxidation effects from the sun in this case, or red light therapy, that you can make yourself healthy again in this case. And obviously if you ate good and did that, that'd be even better. And obviously we have so many friends now, freaks about their ice baths, freaks about their saunas. Obviously I love them both. Any thoughts on that from either one of you? Seth, like I said, I know you have the ice bath now. I don't know if you've started using it at all. I know you like saunas. Any of this biohacking stuff that you really enjoy the most?
Yeah, I have not filled up that sauna. I actually went to fill it up, and I'm moving soon, so I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. I was just visualizing have to empty it, and I was like, I'm gonna wait on that. But John's got the actual little bucket, and he's been doing it every day, and all the guys in the office, they're all doing it. I was just searching the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and thinking about the sauna. It seems like the sauna would probably be something good to, if it's too hot, you're probably going into sympathetic, but if it's at the right temperature and you're able to relax, maybe do some breath in there. I love that. If we're talking about chemicals though, are we talking about brain? Are we talking about body?
Anything,
yes.
bro.
Anything.
So I've got this right here, which is on the nootropic level. This has been one of my absolute favorites. It's phosphoracetam.
Yeah.
There's a ton on that. I've tried a lot, and I think most of them are kind of garbage. This one's been super awesome though.
Can you describe what it does? Because this is similar to
yeah.
The original's telomeracetam, correct? Is the common one. Am I correct?
Just paracetam. So this is this is a line of drugs that was discovered by the Russians, and I want to say the 60s. And this one in particular is actually was first made, I want to say, if not first made, then currently being studied by a Japanese pharmaceutical company, where they're seeing how well it works for ADHD. And this goes full circle to what we were talking about, the genetic mutations. What is it called? The
HFR.
FR. Yeah. So what they found is that for whatever reason, this right here works for people with that genetic mutation, and people outside of that, not all too much. And then the other thing that's super interesting about this is it's kind of this has some sort of action on GABA, and it's the opposite of a Xanax. It's doing the exact opposite thing. So it's a very interesting one in terms of its mechanism, because the other racetams are I have phenoparacetam, and that stuff gives me a headache it's using up all the choline inside my brain. So like I get a little bit less of a headache if I take choline with it, but, or if I eat like a bunch of eggs in the morning, I don't experience that. But just the fact that it's a side effect at all, I don't like it. Whereas this does not have that experience whatsoever. It's much more like just alertness. And I actually took one before we started here because it increases the level in which I can like recall words. Like I don't get that like tip of my tongue feeling, which I have a lot. However, I will say this, I think that the whole base thing that we're talking about is today's like food. And I think that me not going back and just completely nailing that down, not to say that it's not so complex, otherwise, people wouldn't hire any of you guys. You guys are you have your careers because this is such a complex thing fitting into our lives. But going back and getting that right, even more right than I currently do, would probably have 10 times the effect that this would. But I have a lot of things that I kind of want to hear Todd's perspective on, being in the industry that you're in, and I guess just everybody's, and see what like NAD plus. That's on like I had an infusion one time when I was in Utah. I had like a nurse come and bring it into my hotel room, and it felt like my body was on fire, and it hurt at first, and then it started to hurt good, which is hard to describe. And then I felt amazing. And what was incredible about it is I had it because I had altitude sickness. I was at the top of a mountain, like, I don't know, 9,600 feet above sea level. I'd never had altitude sickness before. So I didn't know I was like, why do I feel so stupid and lightheaded? And I got it. And so I have an Oura ring, and my Oura ring said that my blood oxygen saturation, and who knows how accurate this thing is, but said 96%. And then as soon as I was probably about 15 minutes into the NAD, went up to 98%. It was like an immediate increase in my body's ability to adapt to the environment that I'm in. So, and I'm just going to kind of rattle off a bunch of things. And I had one more thing I want to know if anybody here knows about, and it's this, what is it called? 5-amino 1MQ. Has anybody heard of that on here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, is it the real deal? Like, is it all it's cracked out to be?
I know a fair amount about peptides. That's not one that I'm that familiar with. But yeah, Derrek, you started this conversation about saunas and ice baths and peptides, all that kind of stuff. Here we go with trends again, right? This is a trendy thing, but in all honesty, it's all good if they don't overdo it. This is the problem that we see, is they get into the ice bath and they stay there for a half hour, or they just do it every day. What are we looking for when we get into a sauna? We're looking for heat shock protein activation. We get into an ice bath, we're actually putting our body in a state of stress, and that's a hormetic effect. Hormesis is the whole theme here of stressing your body to the point where it just makes it stronger. But if you overdo it, dang it, you're going to screw it up, because it's just like overtraining in the gym. Same thing. Too much is not good. Too little is not good. The right amount is you're going to get that. Your cells, your mitochondria are going to function properly. They're going to get stronger because of that. So that's the fine line that we have to walk in these types of new trends, especially ice baths. So
yeah, we see that a lot. I was just telling somebody the other day, my buddy Bobby Klein, that he's like, I'm going to do this 10 minutes a day, every day. And I'm like, it's just like a workout. You got to rest, you got to recover. You definitely don't need too much of it. And obviously I think people do that, which, people like to overdo anything. I mean, I'm not much better. I literally have 100% or nothing tattooed across my whole forearm. But one thing you did say, Seth, is NAD. And me and Todd's good friend, Bob Fisher, he was actually going to be on today. But love Bobby, but he is someone I've been working with recently. We got him all set up to do NAD therapy. And my way of doing it that I recommend is people to do it every day for 14 days straight is what I usually recommend. Most of the literature says you do need to continually do it for like a set amount of time to actually get the benefits of it. Like a one-time dose probably helps, but it's not going to be super effective. And then at the same time, I have all the people I work with, clients that are doing this kind of longevity training with NAD intravenously. I make them take nicotinamide or riboside orally, which is a precursor to natural NAD production. There's a couple other things that you can take, but nicotinamide riboside is going to be the most abundant. If you see a pill that says NAD on it, it's probably that. It's just NAD that you inject is very different. It's just they're just selling you a precursor. It's similar to NAC, what I recommend everybody should take, N-acetylcysteine. So it's just a precursor. It's just going to affect the body that way.
NAC is a precursor to glutathione, and NR precursor to NAD. So is NMN.
Yeah.
So those are the two biggest ones. But I don't want to kind of this kind of goes kind of back to the red light therapy and all that stuff. We were meant to get sun exposure. Sun is being demonized. We're putting sunscreen on our skin, and we shouldn't be, honestly. We need to go back to the way we used to live, and we're getting on our own way, honestly. So
Todd, say that again. Say that again, please. So we should not be putting on sunscreen.
No, in my opinion, we should not be putting on sunscreen.
Yeah. Sarah LaRowe, did you hear that? Perfect. Sorry, that's my wife. Okay. Always wants me putting on sunscreen. I'm like, no, and I explain the research and stuff too. So I'm really glad you're saying
so there's, obviously the normal stuff is toxic. Even the clean stuff, honestly, it prevents the absorption, prevents cholesterol production, vitamin D production, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Our bodies were meant to get some. I love getting out in the morning and get that first sunlight. That's where that red light comes into your eyes and gets into the pineal gland, and that's where the melatonin is made for you to sleep. So if you want to get better sleep, get some early morning sun on your eyes, and then during the day you're getting the sun on the skin. That's a whole different process. We need it all, but to Derrek's point earlier, I just wanted to kind of mention that.
No.
Yeah. Well, think about the vanity of it, though, Todd. If I get sun on my face, I'm going to age, and then I'm going to be ugly.
Skin cancer.
How am I going to be beautiful, Todd, if I have all this sun exposure on my face? Which obviously is a joke, but I'm saying this is obviously what we deal with nowadays is the vanity of everything is nobody wants to age. Nobody wants to change. Nobody wants things to happen over time. And even when we get into melanoma research, the chances of getting melanoma from the sun are very low. It's obviously a lot of people who see sun exposure causing melanoma are I don't know. Obviously you're how old are you, Todd?
53.
53.
He's level 53.
So he's level 53. He's really very, very powerful. But my mom was from the era where tanning beds were thought to be healthy. They were thought to be awesome. So even as a child, my mom would put me in a tanning bed often, and my mom would tan often, swearing that it was healthy. But I think if you go back to a lot of people that get melanoma and things like that, you could probably go to a past history where they were getting artificial sunlight and things like that is where most of these things are coming from. You rarely see farmers who literally live in the sun having melanoma. I think
that's because they're getting the full spectrum. They're getting the full spectrum of color and light. And when we're in I don't know how they're made now, but in the day, in sun bed or tanning beds, you're getting a lot of UVB exposure. And UVA kind of ages you, UVB kind of burns you, if you think of it that way. But you don't want too much of one thing. We need the whole spectrum. And so that's part of the problem.
Yeah. And that's well said too. You don't want to overdo anything. My grandpa, he did have a little bit of melanoma on the top of his bald head, right? And he had to get that removed. But that was the excess, the freaking hours upon hours, right? So I think there's always moderation. It's beautiful.
He lived on his tractor in the field with no hat on.
Good old Alice Chalmers, baby.
I wanted to hop right with this perfect subject because obviously we're talking about intravenous NAD therapy. We're talking about a lot of these things. One of my favorites is sauna. I've been preaching a lot lately about obviously my biggest fear in life is Alzheimer's. My grandpa had it, my other grandpa had it, my wife's family had it, so terrified of it. Most people don't know, but the heat shock proteins and the benefits of sauna, the studies they just had this big meta-analysis come out, and I just think it's worth noting for everyone here to hear. This meta-analysis, obviously a meta-analysis is just a combination of studies. Is when you get the best answers is when you get a meta-analysis. and it showed that there was a 66% reduction in Alzheimer's and dementia if someone would go into a sauna for 15 minutes. I think it was like 4 times a week. And the same thing was all-cause heart mortality, stroke, heart disease, everything went down 50%, and even cancer went down by 40%. So I think this kind of goes back to, like, I think there's a double tangent here. It's like, one, get heat shock proteins. They're awesome for you. And then two, I think I say this was like, what we do in one thing, we do in all things. I've said this probably in every podcast we've done so far. So like, people who are taking the time to go into a sauna 4 days a week are probably also the same people who are going to take the time to put the right nutrients in their body. And this is kind of what we see with, I'm sure everyone here's clients and people is, once you see someone getting better here, then like, over here, they're getting better. They didn't even mean to. And then like all these puzzle pieces fall in place because, like I said, where our intentions go, we go. So, we follow with them. So I think that's super important, but I don't know. I just threw that all out there, but I wanted to ask about peptides. Because I'm super interested in them and they scare the crap out of me. So I have BPC 157 TB500 in my fridge. I've used it many, many times. One I do feel very comfortable with for, if anyone's listening, for like healing, like scar healing, muscle tears, anything like that, any injury healing has phenomenal effects. I can vouch for it. I've used it many times with many tears. But I'm really interested in like tesamorelin or like LRC and some of these IGF precursors. There's a lot of these ones that say that they're going to burn visceral fat like crazy. And then, I mean, there's a handful of them. I know, Seth, you've tried a handful of these as well, and you liked a bunch of them, and then maybe you stopped a couple of them. There's all these rumors of kidney disease. There's all these rumors of toxicity. There's all these rumors of cancer. Is there anything that you, Seth, can say about these things?
I've only heard that for like BPC 157, the whole cancer thing. Tesamorelin is incredible. Like it's so good. And also there's like a bunch of study, like it's medication for AIDS patients. So like there's studies, it's FDA approved. And then like ipamorelin, there's like a lot of safe ways. I think that we've got all these like chemicals that are poisoning us in our world. And I love the go natural and go live like your ancestors, but we aren't our ancestors, and we're a world full of artificial poisons, and our bodies are drug factories. And when we go into a sauna and there's the heat shock protein, I imagine what's happening is our body is creating all of these peptides. Like the reason why we have all these drugs, like let's just say like psychoactive drugs, even like we have all of these different receptors that they're able to bind to. It's because our body makes them. Like we make our own version of morphine. We make our own version of all these things. And to be able to use these peptides that are naturally produced in our body to increase like what we're able to do, like it just makes sense to me. And like, why would we not do that? If we have all of these things working against us in our environment that we can't do anything about, but we could go and find this one isolated peptide that our body already naturally creates and put it into our system more so that we have an even better life. Like, why would we not do that? It seems like the future of medicine.
I agree. So I've dabbled in a few peptides too, CJC 1295, ipamorelin, tesamorelin. I can't remember all of them. There are good ones. KPV is great for mast cell activation syndrome, things like that with histamine reactions. BPC 157, where's that made in your body? In the gut. And so it's got more, if you isolate it, take it systemically, it can actually help, but it can really help the gut lining too. And so why are people having so much issue? Maybe it's because their gut is destroyed, their gut lining destroyed. Maybe they're not making BPC 157 like they should, or whatever it's called in the body. So I do love the idea of supplementing with these type, because we live in a modern world. Why wouldn't we take advantage of that stuff as long as it's clean, safe, and effective, while we're trying to also emulate our ancestors in the same way. So
I know like people obviously, it's cool to say on a simple scale, like, we should replace this, we're already producing it, but like, let's just say tesamorelin, this is the one that just everyone talks about, everyone knows about. When you've taken it, what are the effects you felt? Like, because like if it, like to say it's healthy is one thing, but like most people are already not doing things that would make them healthier. So it's like, what is the actual benefit? Like, are my energy levels gonna be great? Am I gonna get skinnier? Am I gonna get leaner? Am I gonna lose fat faster? Like, am I going to, what is the advantageous thing to I just specifically testosterone. I just hear so many people talking about. I know you've taken this one before, Seth. Sounds like you've taken it before, Todd. Is there anything there that you guys really enjoyed about it?
I'll let Seth
I mean,
speak to that. I don't believe I've taken that particular one.
Okay.
I've taken the ipamorelin with the CJC, but not testosterone by itself, I don't believe.
Yeah, the testosterone, when I took it, I did like a bunch of they're both like the GHRH, the releasing hormones rather than the secretagogues. And I think at one point I took CJC 1295 DAC with the drug affinity complex, which some websites don't even sell. I heard one guy say like there was a study with rats, and I won't even talk about it. They all died. That drug was awesome though. The CJC 1295 DAC, that was amazing because you just inject it like once a week, and then the drug affinity complex makes it stay in your system. But I took that alongside testosterone. So for me to say exactly what the isolated effects were, I bet my growth hormone was probably skyrocketed when I was taking those together, and they're probably like competing for the same mechanism. What I can say though, I've always had problems with acne, which probably relates to my gut lining being irritated from everything that we just talked about. When I took those peptides, it was just almost like probably over the course of 5 days cleared up. Like everything cleared up. I'd say it felt as though I had lower levels of inflammation. I didn't do any, tests or anything like that to see if like I had markers that are low. Although I would say if I go and get my blood work done on a regular, like whenever I've had a lot of blood work done, I don't have any of those markers for like the traditional inflammation. But it seemed as though my body was better at getting rid of fat. It felt good. Like I don't know.
Good answer.
Yeah, it was like a 10% increase. I actually have a question on this though. This is a little bit off topic, but like talking about these inflammation markers, I know for a fact that I experience a lot of these things that we're talking about here. This is one of the challenges that I've faced. I don't have any signs of inflammation that can be detected in blood. Are there some signs of inflammation that I could look for outside of the traditional ones that are tested for, Todd, that you know of, that, or maybe like, hey, it doesn't turn this light on, but it turns this light on?
That's interesting. So your CRP is okay, things like that. I want to get back to the peptides just for a second, because one that did work for me was called melanotan 2. And that one was for my melanin production. And I actually did get into a tanning bed when I was taking that, and right before like a vacation. And that was a pretty amazing peptide, actually. So kind of a different type of peptide, but it worked.
You get dark.
You look Brazilian.
Not quite. I'm pretty fair skinned, but I did look darker than I normally would. Yeah. So to answer your question,
I got dark.
Did you?
Dark.
Yeah, you have to be careful with it because it can make you look. I mean, it'll make your dark spots look darker, and so you took it too.
That is awesome.
That was dark.
That's going to be the cover of this podcast.
That's going to be Seth holding his phone out.
Yeah. So to answer your question real quick, Seth, we actually measure something in our program. It's called a meta-oxy test, and it measures cell membrane inflammation specifically because we're measuring malondialdehyde, which is output from cell membrane oxidation and damage. So that's one thing that you could do. It's a urine test, and it's super simple, but it's kind of different than the average thing. So it's not a blood test. So that's one thing you could do.
That makes sense though.
Wanna ask too, like, how can we like find you guys? Because like I love Todd. I'd love to check out a lot of your stuff. I'm already checking out Derrek's stuff. Like we're a partner on a lot of things. Seth, you're freaking amazing. Like we get conversations all the time. Like how can we find each other? I'd love to know like what's your programs that you're talking about? Like how can I get into that 5-month process for people that are listening?
Yeah. So you could go to pompaprogram.com. That's one way you could do it. And you can go to tcool.pompahealth.com. That's another avenue. But yeah, those are two avenues you go: pompaprogram.com, tcool.pompahealth.com.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
That'll be in our
And
description.
Seth, finding you, obviously, just for all of people's real estate needs. I know we didn't get into real estate today. We're going to have to get into it another day before we get into final questions. How do people get connected with you, Seth?
You don't.
You don't.
So I'm just playing. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Google us. It's definitely totally unrelated. Don't come asking me anything about what we talked about today.
Yes.
But you can just Google us, and I'd say primarily anybody who's watching this, we have properties throughout all of Northeast Indiana that we sell below market value that have value add opportunity. Our investors make money when they purchase properties from us. That's our value add. So Middle America Homes, 260-888-3163. That's our office line. Go ahead and give us a call and make some money with us.
I love it. I love it. I know that, like I said, we had intentions to get in real estate. The nice thing about this podcast is we're not just like doing one time with people. We want to get people back on and do this again. And the conversation was just so damn good. We couldn't stop. We couldn't switch directions. But I do want to have a final question. We do a final question on every episode. So my final question today, I change it up every single time. It's kind of on the spot. Is for you two, and maybe me and Jimmy can answer as well. If you had to pick 3 things, and I want to caveat here, not diet related or workout related, just because those are so easy, that you would add to your life today if you were not doing anything to live the longest, feel the best. And what would those be? And I'll go first. I would absolutely add a sauna for those benefits we talked about of Alzheimer's, dementia, heart disease, all these things. I would probably make sure that I was taking a solid whole food multivitamin, in my opinion. I really think those are important. And then one thing I'm really big on is I personally am a big fan of TRT therapy. I think for most people to live a quality life, retain their muscle, things like that, I think getting on a good hormone, like even if it's a natural base, not TRT itself, but getting your hormones balanced and working through things like that.
So what about you? Said sauna, TRT, and then what was it?
Sauna, hormone replacement, and what else did I say? Gosh, my brain just went out the window. Sauna, hormone replacement, and I forgot it. So that one's gone. Yeah, the listeners heard it. I'm going to add 2. I'm really big on, I have like a huge multi-system water filter underneath my sink. I'm going to add that one. That's probably more important than what I said, because I remember that one. I have a huge water filter system underneath my sink, and I try to do everything through it. I think that's super important. They are literally cheap. You can get like huge 4-stage unit filters. They're super easy to install, and they're like $150. So there's no reason to be drinking all the toxic stuff in the water. So what about you, Jimmy?
For me, man, that's a good question, bro. I would say I would look at like, and one thing just for all of our viewers and listeners, like biohacking is so general. So I encourage everybody to look up like biohacking for nutrition, biohacking for sleep, biohacking for exercise, biohacking for mindset, for technology, for environmental factors. Yeah. Like there's so much out there. For me, I would say probably if I got to choose 3, it would be, if I didn't already have it, right? Yes. So it would be mindset and probably mindfulness, meditation, which is in the form of gratitude a lot of times for myself, like how it changes my beingness and how I show up in the way that I do. Everything is like amazing. So that would be number 1 is mindfulness, meditation, gratitude. Probably the second one, I was going to go to sleep, but the mindfulness meditation helps with that. So I'll skip on that one. I would say something that I've really appreciated is nootropics and adaptogens. Yeah. So I would probably add that, just different herbs and like understanding like how your body responds to it. Because one that helps me that may not help Derrek or Seth or Todd here, right? So like finding the nootropics and the herbs that can, adaptogens that can help you the most. And then I would say, gosh, this is something that people like really, you spot it, you got it, by the way. I'm saying this because I'm one of them. But active warm-up stretch routines before working out, like just cervical mobilizations, right? Like looking left and right, up and down, ear to shoulder, rotator cuff activators, like standing snow angel, stuff like that. I would say that's probably like the best thing for anything that I'm going into actively. Now that I'm level 31, I'm not at level 52 yet, Todd. You're getting there, bro. And as we age, like it's just a good thing to actively like
Mobility.
bring into mobility. Yeah. So those are my three.
I love it. What about you, Todd?
If I could, I would like to give 4. I just wrote down
Good.
some stuff, if
I
you
love
don't
Of course,
mind.
Todd.
First of all, I just want you to move more. We're in a very sedentary society. We sit all day long, some of us in offices, in our cars, whatever. So just get out and move more. I would encourage that. I would encourage you to start intermittent fasting and just start thinking about fasting in general, because we are constantly, when we're eating all day along, we're in that mTOR stage, the mTOR pathway, which is building anabolic, which is great, but not great all the time. Just like we talked about today, we don't like everything all the time. We want to get in that autophagy pathway where we can eat those senescent cells, where we can go capture that bad stuff before it turns into cancer, things like that. Fasting is the only thing that can do that effectively. Maybe a good quality essential amino acid complex, because enzymes are made from them, neurotransmitters are made from them, of course, proteins. We're deplete in amino acids, a lot of us. And then lastly, eat organic when you can. If you want to go to EWG, look at the Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, whatever, but at least those Dirty Dozen, go to organic there, and that could be very helpful.
And for anybody who doesn't know what the Dirty Dozen is, just if they're listening, the Dirty Dozen is the list of the vegetables and like grown agriculture that's going to have the most pesticides, chemicals, problems on it. For every year, they release a new list. It's really good at the beginning of the year to check it out.
Gosh, that's awesome.
And Seth?
For a long time, I was focused on the longevity, and I was like, oh, I want to live a long time. And I want to rephrase that. I've kind of realized I want to live a good time, and I don't mean like fun and euphoria, but I mean like, yeah, high value and impact. And so with that being said, and now I'm gonna hypothesize that living a happy life probably is a longer life most of the time as well, because you're not as stressed. So I would say family is huge. Like we have a kind of a culture that promotes people living like a single bachelor lifestyle, where they're treating people as commodities and losing a lot of like social structure and values, to where there are no bounds, there's nothing that's sacred, and there's nothing that's holy in their life, and they lose meaning, and life without meaning is completely empty. So I think an emphasis on that, which if we're going to talk about longevity, probably you're going to have like that social structure. Like if somebody, let's say your spouse dies, and then you follow shortly after, right? So that's not a coincidence. Like there's something to that. And then the next thing with on the note of having anything that's like nothing that's sacred and holy is God, like 100%. Like I know we're talking about longevity, but I think I had a moment at one point where I realized that we're all supposed to die, and I would not want to be here forever. Like, no, thank you. And not at all. So like everything has purpose because it comes to an end, and everything good that comes has purpose because it was challenging to accomplish it. And having God and having this thing that's clearly revered, if you want to look at it from a scientific aspect, which I think there is, like on the topic of like mindfulness and meditation, there's like no doubt, I bet if I like gotten an MRI while I was praying or studying, and if I were to say like, am I in a sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system, what kind of habits do I have? Because I revere God, and I can go into depth into that, but life worth living, right? And then I like hot yoga.
Nice.
Like,
Yes.
Hot yoga is pretty awesome.
Hot yoga is awesome.
I want to
That's
add
awesome,
one
bro.
thing. I just want to piggyback before we leave here on what Seth was saying. If we have a good dose of vitamin G every day, gratitude, a lot of
Let's
things fall into
go.
place, right? Vitamin G, get your good dose of vitamin G every day,
Amen.
and then everything will fall into place, because you can't have gratitude and have negativity at the same time. So I just wanted to leave you with that.
Yeah.
Church, bro.
Yep. And we didn't dive into a lot of, like, most of our podcasts are about mindset and about gratitude and about our faith and about how these things lead us in life. And we talk about business. And obviously, you know, sometimes the conversation's so good we don't get there, but I would happily say that we should have this exact same group on again, and we should dive into more of these subjects. I think the dynamic was fantastic today.
Amen.
But we always like to finish the podcast with prayer. So if that's something that you guys feel comfortable with, I will lead. If you want to come in, if you feel comfortable, Todd, you can go second. Seth can go third. And Jimmy is the best prayer closer I've ever heard in my life. So does that sound good to you, Jimmy?
Vitamin G right here, right now sounds great.
Yes. Yes.
Go.
So here we go. God, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for everything that you brought into my life. I want to thank you for these 4 gentlemen you brought before me today and the amount of knowledge I gained. There's nothing better than having good conversation, and you keep giving me the opportunity day in and day out to spend good conversation and good time with people who make me better, make me smarter, and make my life have more purpose and value. So I just want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for the enormous load you've been putting on my shoulders lately. That is going to make me stronger and more powerful and make everything from here out feel easier. So thank you for that.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity that I got to spend with these gentlemen. It was an absolute pleasure. But I want to bring to attention that people are hurting out there, and I pray that they hear this message, they understand what's going on, and that we could somehow provide value to them. That's what this is all about. It's not about us. It's about providing value and resources and just hope for the everyday American. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to reach them.
Merciful Lord, I want to second everything that my brothers in Christ have diligently noted, Lord God. We want to trade our attitude for gratitude. And I love just, wow, all of the amazing things that we embrace today. Lord, I've learned so much. And what a term, Lord, vitamin G. That is that is cool at the pool. So Lord God, I'm so excited to just continue to embrace this life with you, Lord God. It's so lonely without, and when we don't understand why we're here. And Lord God, a lot of times we ask the questions, why this happened to us, but rather we could be asking the question, what for? And Lord, I know that it's for your purpose, and that everything that we go through, Lord God, that it is for something higher, Lord. So thank you for giving us the strength, Lord, giving us the resources, the people around us that we can come together and truly fight the resistance in this life, fight the darkness, and bring out the light and bring out the love in every situation. Lord God, I know that there's going to be dark times, but you give us the opportunity, Lord God, to be the moon in the darkness that reflects your light in every situation. So Lord God, I truly pray that we remind ourselves that we cannot make up the image of Christ alone. It's only together, Lord. So I pray to be your hands and feet in these situations. And just as Brother Todd mentioned, Lord God, to create value, Lord God, just as Derrek mentioned, to just continue to live in gratitude, Lord. I'm super thankful for that. And pray lastly, Lord God, that we can shift into the one gear that you know, and that's forward, never reverse. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I love it.
Amen.
I love it.
Love you guys, dude.
Yeah. Thank you guys for
awesome.
coming on. We're going to do this again, but you guys all have a beautiful, beautiful day.
See you, fam.
Yeah.